My name is Mike Hasty, and I was a medic in Vietnam. I just want to thank Sean for what he said, because I knew Sean Daly. He was a friend of mine. And, you know, I also have lost friends that did not die in Vietnam, or they died as a result of being there. And I had one of my best friends from Vietnam named Bobby Drew. He was from Harlan County, Kentucky. We were really close in Vietnam. One day he was almost killed. And but 4 years after we came back from Vietnam, he was killed in a head-on collision, a car accident. And then there was another medic friend of mine by the name of Willie Hemphill. Willie Hemphill was from Charlotte, North Carolina. Okay. He was a medic, black vet. He was a very good friend of mine, and he and I went to combat medic training together. Then we went to an additional year school together before we went to Vietnam. And then 6 months after I got to Vietnam, his unit deactivated, and he was assigned to my unit. Okay. And another medic friend of mine by the name of John Jacob Lowe spent 2 tours in Vietnam. He attempted suicide in Vietnam. And I was there when he attempted suicide. We stopped him. So, you know, I think it's so important that what Sean said up here, because Sean Daly was a very quiet man. He was very quiet. He was not, you know, he was not somebody that I would have thought that would. We have this idea of he's a person that would never do that. You know, I did not think. I was really surprised when I found out that Sean committed suicide. He hung himself in a motel room. That's what happened. And I had been around him several times. I'd gone up to visit him, his vet group up in just north of Spokane. But what's interesting about Sean Daly is that Sean Daly was very quiet. He kept a lot of that energy inside of him. You know, I don't worry about the vet. I mean, a lot of people in this audience have heard me, you know, go off here and there and do some pretty outrageous stuff. And, you know, I've confronted a few people in my life, and but Sean was very quiet. I don't worry about the vets that are confrontive, that show their anger, that show their grief. I don't usually worry about those vets, because they're the ones who usually don't take their life. But it's the Sean Dalys. It's the vet that doesn't say anything. It's the vet who keeps it all inside. Those are the vets I worry about. And I think it's just important that I often say I wish we could have a group, even today, have a group of all of us go have an hour group, all of us talk about how this war affecting our lives. This war in Iraq, how is it affecting your life? How is it for me? It's Vietnam has never stopped. It's just one war after another. I mean, it's just, you know. So I just want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank Sean Daly. I will never forget him. He gives me strength. If it wasn't for the Sean Dalys, I wouldn't get out of bed in the morning. And so I just want to thank you all for being here. And this is the most important thing we can do today. So thank you.
I'll make this short. I thought of something I should have brought it. It's a picture. It's a picture in a little German town in Baden-Württemberg. I think Hohenheim is his name. And in the middle of this little German town is an obelisk, marble, I think. and it's got engraved the names of all the guys from that town who had died in the First World War. And the inscription at the bottom says, "Nie wieder Krieg," never again war, 1918. And the tragic irony of it really got to me. And I took a picture of it, and I wish I brought it, but I'll be bringing it.
Well, the next, thing that we're going to have here, this is also in solidarity with Labor History Month, because too often we forget that most of our veterans are working class people. They're the ones that they send to the slaughter. And as a young man growing up in a home where my father was raising 6 kids as a bartender and made just enough tips that he could feed all of us in a 2-bedroom house. And just as he was starting to kind of make it in this world, and this was the time, the good days, when we had Social Security, we had good unemployment, we had a number of wonderful services available to us. And but we still came from a very poor family. We were moving up to the big time. And I didn't know what I was going to do, and that's when I decided, I didn't see a future for myself. I didn't really have much of an education. I was a dropout out of high school. And I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, just like so many young people today who enter the service. And I've been reading a lot of books about guys coming back from Iraq, from the first Gulf War, and from this Gulf War. And each of them have similar stories. They didn't know where their future was. The military was offering them education and travel, as though that was going to be a fun time. And I too hear the same story over and over again. And how are we going to change that? How are we going to change this reason why people join the military and other rich people send us to go die and kill other poor people and working class people? One way is to try and look at how labor and unions and working class people around this country can stand up against the administrations and the rich in this country that send other people to war. And one way to do that is for unions and others to say, we're not going to participate in that. About 2 years ago, the AFL-CIO put out a resolution against the war in Iraq. And yet I don't see enough labor organizations going on strike against this war. We need to bring labor, we need working class people to move past their leadership and demand that we do a general strike. This would be something that could stop the war. Well, one of the things, we just had a labor arts festival here, which was in solidarity with veterans in some ways, because they wanted to hold it during the Veterans Weekend, Veterans Day weekend. And it gave us an opportunity to explore a little bit what Sean said about Armistice Day and what Grant said, so that we kind of put that message out there also, so that people understood that we as veterans want to see a peaceful world, we want to work towards that.
Is that it's not just the men and women in uniform that are killed and maimed, displaced, and affected by war. Civilians, women, children, aunts, uncles, you know who they are. Wars today are so industrial and so non-discriminate that the innocents die 10 to 100 times more than those in uniform. So we must remember them and the after effects such as Agent Orange, which affects hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese still. And we don't know yet what depleted uranium will do in the Gulf.